Hotep. It's Brother Beniti. I'm in Ray K, Brother Michael. What I want to do in this sit down is go over some of the, kind of inspired by the last couple of shows that we did on Awakening Universal Minds, especially last night. Want to discuss some of the feminine goddesses, mainly Sekhmet, and what it represents. The Sekhmet energy, the Kali energy, the Lilith energy, very similar in nature. Very aggressive, bringing about extreme abrupt change, and reflecting back on a lot of the work that I do. Most of the archetypes that I work with tend to be female archetypes, mainly Kali, Lilith, and of course Sekhmet, which is a very warring, aggressive spirit, a devouring archetype energy, not for the weak at heart. It embodies all aspects of violence and aggression, but being able to channel that violence and aggression for your benefit. I say it is a warrior type of archetype because it can clear many paths for you spiritually when worked with correctly. It can remove many blockages and obstacles that you're dealing with on all levels. It is kind of the energy that one needs when traveling this path, if they're facing these obstacles. We were talking about last night on the Awakening Universal Minds radio show. You're your own worst enemy on your spiritual path, especially this path of what we call the left-hand path, origin of ancient Egypt. It's not a path for everybody. It's not a path that everybody can walk, because you are challenged with everything about yourself. You are challenged with everything that you try to avoid. You are challenged with all your fears. When working with these aggressive feminine archetypes such as Sekhmet, it'll bring that to the surface. So one definitely has to be prepared and ready and willing and able to deal with those things head on. The wonderful thing about it is, when you get through that transition period, and I say transition period of hardship because there is some difficulties of abrupt and necessary change, the rewards after that are great, because your paths are open and you've now become receptive to receiving that archetype energy. The reason why I bring this up again, because we, as I was saying a second ago, last night on the radio show, we kind of had one topic in mind, but we wind up bringing a lot of females on the show and having them share their experiences and their perspective, and it led us coming to the realization of one thing, that the feminine energy is much more powerful, much more aggressive, much more dominating. It's almost masculine in sense about how powerful it is and the abrupt change in results that it brings. And if you look at, in all cultures, when studying these archetypes, whether it's Ifa, you have who they call Oya, who's a very aggressive archetype, represents tornadoes, storms, cataclysmic events, has a strong aspect and connection in nature, and in those cataclysmic events, nature, and cycle changes, it brings just that tremendous amount of change. It wipes everything out of its path. When people also look at some of the other main deities in the Ifa pantheons such as Yemaya and Oshun, they always only focus on Yemaya, the motherly nurturing aspect, but Yemaya has a very violent and cleansing energy path. Remember, in the Ifa pantheon, they have multiple paths, but people only know them for some of their main attributes. So Yemaya can be a very fierce warrior. As if a mother is threatened, or if you threaten a mother's children or family, she becomes very protective. It's the same with all females. It's the same with Yemaya. So there's that nature to it. Okay? So that's very important to understand. Oshun, who most people always just affiliate Oshun with worldly things, sexual pleasures, finances, just things of the world. And there is a path to Oshun that opens up all those doorways for those things. But I personally can speak for myself, being a son of Oshun in that pantheon. There's a warrior aspect of Oshun, which that's the path I'm connected to with Oshun. There is a witch, warlock, magician path of Oshun. This is a feminine energy that embodies all aspects of the occult, or what we would call the left-hand path. Witch powers, witchcraft, warrior energy. And as anybody knows that studies the Ifa pantheon, you know Oshun is the worst Orishi, they say, symbolically, to anger because of the type of energy that can be unleashed from angering that Oshun energy. Then you have Kali, as we've mentioned in the Hindu pantheon or the Dravidian culture. Kali means black goddess, dark black goddess. Unfortunately, as you see Kali depicted today in a lot of the modern day Hindu pantheons, obviously they've whitened her up just like every other culture, unfortunately, is done. But we know Kali is the, and again, I've done a lot of work with Kali, and I've said this a couple of times, I believe, here on the YouTube channel, and I've said this a couple of times on the radio show. Kali is the type of energy that's not going to pat you on the back, cuddle, and hold you. I use this metaphor. If you want to learn how to swim, Kali will take you and throw you into the deep end of the water and say, here, swim. It's a very aggressive energy. It's not a babying, nurturing energy. Kali is also known, along with all the other feminine pantheons, to bring extreme change, violent change. When I say violent change in the sense it's so abrupt, fast, quick, swift, one definitely has to be prepared for it, because as we've said a multitude times before, when we're talking about change, we're talking about change you need, not change you want, because sometimes what you want is not what you need, and sometimes people are caught off guard with that and they're not prepared for it, so something comes their way that they were not expecting. And that's the challenge of this path. Always expect the unexpected, because this is what brings out the master, or the god or the goddess in you. It forces you to deal with it, overcome the obstacles, overcome the challenges, the difficulties. That's what makes one a deity. Not just sitting back and taking accolades and making blank statements because you read a bunch of fucking books and think you know something. That's not what this path is about. If you say you're a god or a goddess, you're going to be tested to the fullest of that ability. Okay? You're going to be held accountable for that statement. You understand? In the sense you will be tested. So Kali brings that. Kali also has a dark magical aspect dealing with vampire magic. She is the ultimate of ultimate vampire goddesses, when one also wants to tap into the divine potential, for lack of a better word, of their sexual powers. So her energy is worked hard on this path when one is trying to attain, reach their, potential sexual heights and sexual exploration. So that is important. It can be a very engulfing ecstasy type of spirit or energy. When I say spirit, that's what I'm talking about, type of energy one can tap into. And one has to be prepared for it, not to be consumed by it. There's not a lot of male energy archetypes that are, when you go down and break it down in its essence. I'm going to say outside of Set, that are that aggressive. Now Set, who we know in this pantheon as the Prince of Darkness, the real Prince of Darkness, not no fictitious, biblical, satanical devil character, which is all bullshit, myth, and mythology. We're talking about the real supreme Prince of Darkness, the ultimate Prince of Darkness that engulfs you in that chaos and molds you in that chaos. And as you're being molded in that chaos, you come out refined. You establish that personal order that you need for your life. The best way I can describe that Setian energy is raw power. As I've worked with it a multitude of times, you can definitely get consumed by that energy and work in rituals. I mean, the power and energy that comes over you, one might want to call it possession. I don't like to use that word because when people hear that term or that word, they automatically affiliate religious definitions with it. And possession is not a bad thing when understanding what it is. To be possessed in other cultures, such as Eva culture, they'll say mounted by an archetype or an Orishi. You are engulfed in the power of that entity, of what it represents. So it's not a bad thing. It's knowing how to channel and facilitate it and knowing how to work with it. But the best way I can describe Set is just raw power. Raw to the fullest. I don't give a shit type of power. Tell it like it is type of power. Gonna give you a swift kick in the ass where you need a swift kick in the ass type of power. But one of the most awesome spiritual works that you can do with Set beyond anything else is the very experience of those spiritual works is just undescribable. That cannot be put into words because there's nothing that's left untouched. So outside of Set, and I look at those feminine archetypes which just are fragments of that same energy. They line up perfectly with that Set energy when we're talking about Kali, when we're talking about Sekhmet. Sekhmet. Even Sekhmet's, who they know in the Egyptian pantheon, sister Bast, who they say one's the lady of the east, one's the lady of the west. Bast does have a very violent and aggressive nature, an aspect to when you tap into it and working with it on certain spiritual practices. Not as aggressive and raw and powerful as Sekhmet, but there is some energy and connection there, obvious. But Sekhmet, when I look at Sekhmet, all I think of is pure warrior. All I visualize is a feminine warrior in that image with that skiff, that knife, that blade, just chopping shit in your path that doesn't need to be there. Now remember, this is all symbolic because when you tap into the symbolism of what these archetypes represent, this is how you engulf the energy and become the energy. This is how you become Sekhmet. This is how you become Set. This is how you become Kali. Okay, because you're tapping into the superconscious or your subconscious mind and you're accessing energy that you need to work with because it's what's going on within you that needs to be dealt with at that time. A lot of us on this path are chaos beings, and I consider myself, people don't understand it, I'm a chaos being. I don't like order. Order in the sense of not making order out of the chaos, but I don't like structured order, mundane order, restricted religious type of order. That shit doesn't work with me, and it shouldn't work with anybody on this path. To be, for lack of a better word, if you say you're a chaos being, you embrace the chaos. So I embrace the chaos, and as I embrace that chaos, I try to absorb and experience everything that's in that chaos, and I try to work with it on all levels. And that's the beauty of this path. Chaos can be a beautiful thing if you really know what it is and what it represents and how to work with it. If you look at that term and you look at chaos in the sense that, oh my God, chaos, from a religious or a spooky perspective, you hear that word, you're like, that's a negative thing. Well, as we've said before on this path, there is no such thing as good and bad, or good or evil, right or wrong. It's just a matter, as you go back again to the sacred wisdom of Tahuti, or you go back to what we call the 7 principles of Tahuti. We call it the Kabbalion, sacred wisdom. I mean, you have all these different terms. It's basically talking about the 7 Hermetic principles. And one of those things is the doctrine of vibration. You understand that all things vibrate at different frequencies. Therefore, the individual perceiving those vibrational frequencies, perceiving is going to define it if it's good or bad to them. So when you've been indoctrinated with a bunch of rhetoric, say, as I mentioned a minute ago, the chaos term, most people's definition of chaos to them and how they've been programmed to perceive it is negative. This path strips away all of the false illusions that you've been spoon-fed for years. When we talk about the isolated consciousness or separating yourself from everything that's had an influence upon you, it's not an easy thing to do. Sounds easy, but it's not. People sometimes carry that with them in the working of the spiritual path, and they encounter great difficulties and problems, therefore becoming their worst enemy. They run into problems not being able on a wide scale level to be successful. So this path teaches you that. It teaches you, when we talk about, as we said a multitude of times, real black magic is reprogramming the subconscious mind, which means completely changing your way of thinking, perceiving, and looking at everything. Because I'm going to say just about all of it, or 99.9% of the shit we've been taught from day one when it comes to spirituality, life, death, who and what we are, has been false. We've been fed every other bullshit you can think of, every religion, philosophy, dogma, faith, belief system, you name it. We have dabbled in it, and it's done nothing but cause separation. It's done nothing but cause negativity amongst ourselves. Negative in the sense that it's not conducive to our spiritual growth. We're arguing over dumb shit. Who was first? Was the Metu Neter translated? Is the Hebrew community correct? Is the Kemetic community correct? Or the Moors, do they have the answer to all the questions? It's all ridiculous, mundane bullshit that really has nothing to do with who and what we are, what we need to be doing, and where we need to be headed. When I say where we need to be headed, I ain't talking about going to no spooky place. I'm talking about, what direction should we be working towards? This is where solutions come into play. Look, you see it's getting fucked up out here, okay? We can see that on a daily basis. People screaming for change. Well, change is here. I've said it before. It's been here. It's amongst us. It's happening now as we speak. You see the world is in an uproar. People lost their goddamn mind when Donald Trump won the election. Some are acting as if it's the end of fucking civilization as we know it. You see the racism and the police brutality. You see the death, the plague, and the starvation all over the world. And I don't mean to bring all this up to sound gloomy and doomy. I'm bringing it up because people say, when is the change coming? Well, the change is here. The chaos is here. How are you embracing it, and how are you moving forward? Or are you letting it engulf you and it completely and affect your emotions, which unfortunately a lot of people are. You have to look at this from a bigger perspective and not get caught in your personal opinions, feelings, and emotions, because this is what their aim and objective is. And when I say this is their aim, I'm talking about individuals that are trying to control the power structure. This is a path about power. You should be getting up every day and saying you seek knowledge, pleasure, and power. so you can have full control over your life. Okay? Not giving that power and control to somebody else. And listen, I've gotten emails. People say, well, how can you not say that things in the world physically aren't affecting you? I can say that very simply. I say it very simply because I understand it. I put it into its perspective. Where you get caught up in it, thinking you can save the whole fucking world. That's not a reality. That's going to set you up for disappointment. You can only control your immediate environment. Yourself and those immediately connected to you, and things immediately connected to you. See, that's where you got to start first, before you're worrying about what's going on somewhere where you have no control over. Don't mean you can't be conscious of it. But when you let it get to you and rip you down emotionally, they've achieved what they wanted to achieve to control your emotions. And as I've said before, if I can control your emotions by way of fear, by way of anger, or any other emotion that gets you out of your natural character, I can get you to do whatever I want. It's that simple. We have to understand that, because this is part of the challenge on this path moving forward and bypassing some of these difficulties, and a lot of people can't. Like I told you, look at all these people in the conscious community or the melanated conscious community that are so angry and bitter all the time. I told y'all before, most of them are piss broke, ain't got a pot to piss in or $1 in their pocket. So they gotta still, do shit people were doing in the 80s and 90s. Setting up tables in cities and selling DVDs, incense and oils and books, and that's great. That's good for a little side hustle in 2016. But technology has changed. I did that whole game back in the 80s and 90s. When it was a different economic climate. You could hustle and you can make money and survive off of that shit. I did it for years in my teens and early 20s. But the world has fucking changed. You understand? We're living in a different era where that's not going to cut it. Then you got these grown-ass men trying to get with, females and sisters, and they ain't got a pot to piss in. But they want to call themselves providers and gods. See, this is all the illusions that have to be stripped away so you can walk this path correctly. Sekhmet will wake your motherfucking ass up. It's the best way I can describe it. Sekhmet will bring to the surface, oh, this is who you think you are? Okay. Now, you might be some of the things you think you are. I'm not saying. You might have some preconceived notions in your mind of who and what you think you are, and that's great. Whatever that may be. You might think you're some fucking great deity, or you're connected to this, or you think you're some great teacher, or you're this great mother goddess, or whatever. I've watched it happen a million times before. People get a wake-up call, and Sekhmet says, you know what? You got some fucked up shit about you that you need to address. You're a liar. You're dishonest with people. You steal shit. You're a two-bit hustler. You're fake. You're a con. You portray yourself on the outside to be in this spiritual, cultural, whatever it is, but really on the inside you're suffering. You're lonely. You're miserable. You're dealing with a lot of pain that you have not addressed about yourself. So you submerge yourself or hide yourself in all of those external things. And all you're doing is creating a stronger buildup for this to explode. It's creating a volatile situation that's going to come to a head. But the question is, how bad is it going to come to a head? And are you going to be ready to deal with it? This is why, as I've discussed, and we talked a little bit about it on the show, this is why some people get to a threshold in this path and they turn the fuck around and they run back to what they used to be doing, whether that was in the church, the masjid, the temple, being a Buddhist, being into Santeria or Ifa, or being into the Kemetic conscious thing. They stay safe. They stay in a path that they're safe. They feel comfortable and complacent because they're afraid to venture outside of that. It's no different than the Christian you approach who's so spooked out on the mythology of Jesus and the Bible, and you're trying to talk to them about consciousness and they don't want to hear it. So they want to stay safe. They want to stay in the good ship Jesus, right? Well, it's no different on this level. People that I've encountered on this for years come from all backgrounds or levels of consciousness. I've seen it all. I've seen people from high levels, so-called, of what we would call comedic consciousness, and you would think, okay, great, they're so tuned into the comedic thing, they should be able to grasp this with no problem. Doesn't happen. A lot of them fucking encounter a point in this path that either scares the shit out of them, or it's too much for them to deal with, so they just go turn around and become back to what they were doing. They want to stay in the black militant thing, the black power movement thing, and still stay in that whole mentality of how great we used to be back in the day in ancient Egypt. Now, I mean, that's good if that's what your goal is, but that shouldn't be your goal in life, because that is another form of separation and division. As I mentioned earlier, look at all the so-called conscious groups that war with each other on a regular basis, but all claim to promote black unity. We must come together. But how can you come together if you're spending all your time and energy fighting and debating each other? And the sad fucking thing about it is most of them have more things in common than things that they don't. So we see that that's a game, that's a hustle. This path is about obtaining the most highest levels of success you can, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and yes, I must say financially. These feminine archetypes will bring the shit you're afraid to bring, the change you're afraid to usher in to make you a god or a goddess. It's not the fluffy stuff and the trimmings and I'm one with the all and one with the sun and I'm one with the universe and we must all unite and nature is on a... This is not what this path is about. Nature is not on your fucking side. Okay, I'm going to tell you why nature is not on your side. Nature is saying you either cooperate and respect this planet or I'm going to get you the fuck out the way. Okay? Because nature is ripping through areas where there are plenty of melanated people. The flood back in October in New Orleans destroyed a lot of melanated neighborhoods. When hurricanes and tornadoes come ripping through, they don't give a fuck who's there, white, black, Spanish, Chinese, they don't care. Nature just it does its thing, what nature does. It recycles itself, replenishes itself, and moves shit out of the way that's in the way causing problems. What I mean by that is, we're the ones that have destroyed the planet. We're the ones that create pollution. We're the ones that disrespect the earth. And I don't say that in a fluffy sense. I'm not telling you now after this video to go outside and hug some fucking trees. But I'm saying have some common sense, not to litter, not to pollute, recycle. That's all just common sense shit. But we've turned that into a motherfucking religion. Because we have some fanatics in that area too. They're so into this nature thing that they've turned that into a religion. You're just seeing a manifestation and a repercussion of human beings' actions on this planet for thousands of years. We're the ones that have created the sicknesses and the diseases and the illnesses, but we want to blame somebody else for it. We're the ones that have polluted and destroyed the planet. Nobody else has done this. And it's not just the white man, so let's stop that shit. Let's stop pretending like it's just one particular race or group of people. Because I've seen some crazy shit travel in this country, all races, when it comes to that particular area. Okay? This path is about taking responsibility for your actions. This path is about taking responsibilities for your successes and your failures. That's the important part. Your failures. See, this is not a path like many other paths where you can blame something external for why you fucked up. I wasn't able to succeed because of this. Because never ever do I hear anybody say I wasn't able to succeed because I just, I outright just fucked up. I didn't do it right. I made a mistake, a bad decision. You understand? You can't do that on this path. You can't hide on this path. You can fluff yourself up. You can put on, like I said, you could put on a dashiki, a cultural attire. You can put on ankhs and all the cultural trimmings, and you could walk by and fool people. Hey, Alafia, Shalom, Hotep, Ashe. And they say, man, look, man, that brother or that sister, they got it together, man. They look real spiritual. They got natural hair, and they smell good, and they got so they look good on the outside. But on the inside, they tore the fuck up. They miserable, they lonely, they sad, they depressed, they angry, they pissed off. They're dealing with all of this inner conflict, and they think they're gonna mask it with one of these dogmas or these cultures. They look good on the outside. You're gonna find out most people, whatever they are so bitter and angry about or complaining about, they're usually wrestling with that conflict within themselves. And I can tell you this, in doing this for over 20-something years now, almost 30 years, okay? I'm in my mid-40s now, hitting that 50 plateau in a couple of years. Can't believe I'm saying that shit, but it's a few years away, okay? I'm 45, okay? 5 years away from that. I've seen many people who look like they got it together on the outside. I mean, show up or would participate in every event, were very helpful in the community, had it all together on the outside, but found out there was some shit going on inside and personally, that they had some personal demons they weren't addressing, and it was tearing them up. And until they went deep within and addressed that shit, that's the only time when things change, when they did that. You really don't know what a motherfucker is thinking on the outside. You really don't know if somebody's really happy and content. How many people have known, heard, or seen of people that have committed suicide who they said, man, they had everything. I can't believe they would do that. They were so happy every time I see them. And they might even had a decent life. Nice house, nice cars, good job, good career, and consistent money. And you say to yourself, wow, why did that person kill himself? I don't get it. That's the whole point. Because you don't know what's going on in here. You don't know what's not being fulfilled in here, and in here there's something missing. There's something that pains that individual that they have not been able to deal with or address. Because it always baffles us when somebody in that situation takes their life and they had everything, or it appeared that they had everything good on the outside. This is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything if what you're feeling on the inside is not the same thing that you're feeling on the outside. So on the outside, you could be betraying. Everything is, peace and love and gravy, and you might even be successful financially, career-wise, so it looks great on the outside. But if you're feeling some anger, some loneliness, some bitterness, some disconnect, some trauma from all the things that you've experienced in your life, and that's bottled up on the inside, and this is how you feel on the inside, that's going to come to the surface eventually. So what you're doing on the outside isn't going to hide it for too long. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You have to understand this in working on this path. And you have to understand this in dealing with others. And this is why, even though I joke around a lot, when I go on the fucking internet and I see all these angry motherfuckers just standing and giving these angry ass, pissed off lectures because they're so angry all the time. They're wrestling with that anger, what they're expressing or complaining about. They themselves are dealing with that. So, if you want the change, if you're serious about the change, if you think you're ready for the change, then this is definitely the path for you. And the reason why I brought up those feminine archetypes and wanted to focus on that, because these are the archetypes I would suggest people, attributes and consciousness I would suggest people to work with to bring that change, to tap you into the energy of that change. Another one that we've done shows on that I haven't really talked about in this particular video, who's depicted as a feminine archetype, also is the Holy Death. And the Holy Death, how I've worked with it, and what they call the black path of the Holy Death. You have the white path, you have multicolored path, and they represent they work with different levels of energy. I found that the black path, as I've mentioned before, can be worked with any type of situation. It's a road opener type of archetype. It can be propagated for any situation: finances, love, relationships, family, healing. You can work with that energy for all of those situations. A very dark, powerful, mystical energy. When you get engulfed in it, it's very energizing. It juices you up. Is one thing that I can definitely say in regards to that. And I've done a lot of, I don't like to use the word exorcisms, but spiritual cleansings on individuals by way of the Holy Death. And they all will say the same thing. Once that cleansing has been done, it's given them a new sense of awareness. And they've been able to get their personal shit in order. And this is a reality. Again, I don't want anybody to accept that reality until they experience it for themselves. So the Holy Death is definitely another one, or who we might know as La Santísima Muerte. And it's not just, limited as you hear in some of the jargon and bullshit that's a deity that prostitutes and drug dealers in Mexico work with. No, it's not. Its origins go back to the queen of the underworld in the Aztec culture, and the Mayans, which had their connection with the Egyptian culture. Because as I've said before, you see pyramids amongst the Aztecs and Mayans that look similar to the Egyptian pyramids, because prior to Pangea or the continental drift, they were in contact with each other. It's really the same people that just mixed with other genetic races. That's it. So there's that connection there. It predates what we know it as today, the Holy Death. It's what it's known by today. But there is no more power, no more stronger power on this path than working with the feminine archetype. And again, those are the main ones that I work with. Holy Death, Sekhmet, Lilith, and Kali. It's nothing to fucking play with. I'll tell you that shit right now. Don't go into it thinking, it's nothing. Listen, when I say change and transforming, I'm not talking about a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Everybody's experience with it is different. I know some that have gotten, incidences and things that happened to them immediately after doing it, within hours, the next day, etc. And sometimes over a course of period of time. So it can happen on all of those levels, not just one level. And that's what one needs to be conscious of or aware of. Very important. One thing I want to finish with is I want to read a definition from Sekhmet Pet, Typhonian Vampire Magic by Michael W. Ford, to give you an idea of what Sekhmet represents. I'm going to close out with this. Okay, Sekhmet is the sister of the goddess Bast. She is of the triad of darkness and is associated with violence and hate. In dynastic times, Sekhmet was associated with the west, while her sister Bast was associated with the east. As forms of Hathor, Sekhmet is shown draped in a red robe, while her sister Bast was in green. In the triad of darkness, of which Sekhmet, Anubis, and Set comprise, Sekhmet is associated with northeast. This holds association with her form as Mihenet, the serpent goddess who destroys the enemies of the war god Re Harakoti, and is similar to Amun-Ra. So this is a warrior energy that destroys enemies. The name Sekhmet is derived from the root word Sekhem, which is power and associated with violence, to be strong. Sekhmet is in nature associated with the burning and scorching heat of the sun. Sekhmet bears the titled Mighty Lady, Lady of Flame, Tefnut, and Senemet, and appears also as a guardian cobra called Mihenet, which encircles the solar disk of Re Harakati in his conquering form. So we see all attributes of a warrior nature: destruction, removing enemies from the path. One of the most common names of Sekhmet is Neset, which is flame and represents her destroying element. This draws a more curious association with the title of Sekhmet, Lady of Flame, which is also the title of Uchet or Wajet, the Cobra goddess. Sekhmet also has association with the title Lady of Amentet, Lady of Manu, or the Mountains of the Setting Sun, the lands of Libya. The Libyan origin is interesting, as it was the Queen of Libya who conspired with Sethian and his 72 fiends to kill Osiris and Seth, and alone ascending as king. So she conspired with Set to kill the 72 friends of Osiris. Now let me tell you what this represents. You always hear of the 72 conspirators of Set. I'm not going to get into this too much right now. There's a symbolicism in that. Symbolicism in the sense, because we know what Osiris represents. That would represent your light side, right hand, fluffy path. This is all symbolic. Sekhmet was the feminine counterpart that assisted Set in destroying and killing all those affiliated with that ideology or that Osiris mentality, way of thinking, that conformist way of thinking. This is what this is talking about. People think that that's a negative thing. People think the slaying, Set killing Osiris or Osir was a negative thing. It's symbolic. It represents destroying the conformist, going along with everybody's way of thinking and doing things, basically religion. Because at that time, the Osirian cult was trying to pretty much govern and rule Egypt with their ideology, as the story says. But Set wasn't having no part of that shit. Set was like, fuck that. I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. I'm not following nobody. I'm not getting in line with anybody's personal, system of order, but my own. And he respectfully declined, but then was demonized, as you see in the writings after the 21st and 22nd dynasty. This is when he was turned into that devil type of character association that he was given after the fact. So one must understand that represent what goes on in our subconscious minds, the war and battle we fight every day, trying to think for ourselves, not conforming to what society says is the norm, in the sense, because if you doesn't resonate with you and it's not right and it doesn't agree with you, then it's not right. It don't mean you just go along with it because everybody else is doing it. That's what that story represents. And as you see, Sekhmet was a co-conspirer with Set. She helped him carry out that mission. This is not a path for pussies. This is not a path of tapping into the shit that you like. All of those archetypes represent that inner warrior spirit, rebellious in the sense of speaking your mind and doing what's right for you. Sekhmet brings that out. Brings it out probably more than any archetype you will work with. It brings out the warrior side of your nature, the expressive part of your nature. A great deity to work with too if you have issues with your throat chakra. Not able to express yourself. Expression is affiliated with that throat chakra. So one can access that Sekhmet energy to fix and help that problem. Whereas Sekhmet helps you when you tap into the energy of what it represents, not being afraid to express yourself, to speak your mind, to say what's on your mind, to do what you need to do, not because other people are telling you to do it. Because remember, there's a system to this where a lot of these archetypes represent certain chakras. You just need to educate yourself. So you can work with archetypes in addition to the many other methods of working with chakras. They can help with that too. So I'm going to leave that there. I hope this video helped. I really do. I hope this video will make you realize that this is a serious path. This is no fucking game in the sense, I don't say that to sound spooky, and I'm not saying that to scare people, but know what you're going to do when you work this path. Know your purpose, know your intent, know what it is you're trying to achieve, and most of all, be prepared and ready for any and everything. Don't Don't think you're going to travel this path and it's going to be comfortable and things are going to go and come at you at your pace. That's not how it works. And that's not what being a god or a goddess is. It's being able to deal with and facilitate that change as it comes. Okay? So I hope this helps. Couple quick announcements before I go. We will be having another event. Should be the 3rd or 4th weekend in January. I will have the exact dates by the time the next video posts. I'll get that in a few days. Should be the 3rd or 4th weekend in January. We will be doing some mantra magic, working with accessing the Kali energy. We will have a drumming ceremony following that, which all types of shit happens at those. If you've been to the last few, you know. And then the following night at Sophia's Garden of Ma'at, we will have a class on all the stuff that we deal with here. The events are free, as I said, no charge. Again, once I get the information, dates and times, I will have that by next video. And I also will announce that on the Awaken Universal Minds radio show. You could also, again, hit information. I'll get the email address in a second. For all those, I know last few days, a little bit busy traveling with the holidays, family, friends, and things of that nature. I haven't been doing too many consultations in the last week. Kind of took a break from it this week. There was a lot the previous 2 weeks. I will start that back up after New Year's Day. So again, if you are interested in a spiritual consultation, and I like to get that information to kind of save the email, because the email I get all the time is how does it work, how much does it cost, what is it? All right, real simple. And I will do this on every video moving forward to just avoid that email. So you can actually just email me when you're actually ready to do it. It's basically lasts up until an hour, and it's a no holds bar session on everything. Whatever spirits and energy and archetypes come through, I communicate that to you that you might need to work through. Sometimes ancestral spirits in your bloodline comes through, that's communicated to you. It's a chance for you, the individual, to ask any questions you want on anything you want. It could be setting up altars, working rituals, anything. So that's why it's a consultation, and it lasts up until an hour. I do charge $55 to do it, and it can be done by these methods via Skype, Google Hangouts. It can be done just on the phone if you don't want. I prefer to see the person because it's easier for me to get energy from them just looking at them. There's no system of divination used. I don't use any system of divination. I just need the individual in front of me. It's that simple. If there's something in particular that you want to focus on, that can be focused on too. So it's a broad, open type of session, and that's pretty much how it works. It can be done all those methods: Skype, Google Hangouts, Emo app if you have that, over the phone. If you actually have the capabilities to get to me in person, it can be done in person too. So to throw that out there, and again, it costs $55, and that can be set up at your convenience once I know your schedule. I do ask to at least call 2 to 3 days or contact me 2 to 3 days prior to when you need it. It's tough where I'll get some people that call and they want it the day of. Sometimes that's tough. Occasionally here and there, if I have a gap, I'm able to squeeze one in, but I don't recommend that. I do ask, be courteous to at least give it 2-3 days in advance, because that's usually how I structure them, 2 to 3 days out. I have them lined up like that. So I wanted to pass that information on if you're interested. And again, you can contact me for any of the things I mentioned, the events, the classes, or the consultation at K as in Ken, H as in Harry, N as in Nicholas, U as in Unicorn, M as in Michael, N as in Nicholas, Kanum, the number 19 at gmail.com. Again, that's Kanum19 at gmail.com, and I will get back to you on any of those things aforementioned. Other than that, that's all I got for you people today. This is the last video, obviously, of the new year, December 30th, 2016, of this year, I'm sorry. Going forward into 2017, let's bring about some good change for us. So I want to wish everybody, whether you celebrate the shit or not, I don't give a fuck. I don't get caught up in all that garbage, that Santa Claus and Christmas and all. Who gives a fuck? It's about coming together with family. So You don't necessarily need to celebrate the shit, because I don't celebrate any of that shit. I'm not into the Santa Claus thing. I don't really care about it, but I am into the family thing, and spending time with family. It's just basically, that's what it is. Excuse to have a nice meal with family. So whether you celebrate the holidays or not, don't fucking take it personal. I want to wish Happy New Year to everybody going into 2017. You live in motherfucking America, and the calendar's going to flip over tomorrow night. So Happy New Year to you motherfuckers, and don't get all spiritual and spooky. So I wish everybody a safe weekend. Be careful out there this weekend. As you know, crazy shit will be going on this weekend. Crazy nutheads will be out on the road. So if you are going out to celebrate or hang out or just vibe with family, just be safe out there on the road. Watch out when you're driving. Take care of yourself. I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And technically, I will see you next year. Peace.